Hi there, I'm B. I'm a writer and a dreamer. I have fun making these videos, and it would be great if you can show your support by liking our videos, commenting, and subscribing to our channel. Thank you.
They called Earth a blue marble, unarmed, unready, unsophisticated. To the Zanari Dominion, it was a simple mineral claim, a backwards, biosphere-rich rock at the edge of spiral arm. One barely tight, zero civilization, and a few orbital satellites? Pathetic, laughable. So, naturally, they chose to land in Africa. Central equatorial zones indicate dense concentrations of unobstructed resources, said High Strategos Tkal, running his six-fingered hand across a glowing holomap. Low-tech, minimal planetary defense grid. No visible gravitic anomalies. We begin extraction here. The Congo Basin. No resistance. No shields. No claimants. Just jungles and rivers and something called Kinshasa, a human city which their translation matrices pegged as barely more than steel shanties. Zanari dropships tore through the clouds like silver hammers. Tribal drums echoed faintly from the canopy below, filtered through atmospheric scanners. Odd how the rhythms triggered minor sensor interference. But the text brushed it off. Cultural noise. Irrelevant. Until the silence came. The first Zanari squad touched down under the thick green veil of the rainforest. Their boots hissed as they melted vines and brush. The local biosign scattered. Too quiet. Where's the damn resistance? Muttered Commander Xreal, activating his pulse rifle. He stepped forward, and the forest stepped back. Literally, the soil rippled. Trees shimmered. And in that exact moment, the camouflage dropped, not leaves or vines, but an adaptive nanoweave city that had been there the entire time. It rose out of the jungle. Skyscrapers emerged, their sides glowing with shifting tribal glyphs. Roads appeared in perfect geometric symmetry. Statues of obsidian and silver, too lifelike, too still, rotated as if sensing the invaders. And at the center, a monolithic tower pulsed with a heartbeat sound that rattled the Zanari comms. "This isn't natural geology," screamed one of the Dominion engineers, but his voice cracked into static. One by one, the Zanari HUDs glitched, not because of EMPs, but from infiltration. Someone or something was overriding their systems. Display text turned from alien glyphs to human script. Project KANDA active. Access denied. Welcome back. Back in orbit, the Zanari flagship Torval's Edge tried to pull its away teams. No signal, no trace, just white noise and bursts of encrypted Earth frequencies, encoded with languages the Dominion translators didn't recognize. And worse, the satellites were gone. All Zanari orbital scans now showed static around Central Africa. Not jamming, not cloaking, null space. A planetary blind spot, which, as far as Galactic Protocol went, was impossible. Strategos Tkal stared at the screen. "Deploy Eyes of the Core," he ordered. These were the Zanari's most powerful drones, able to see heat signatures through oceans, cities through mountains. They launched. They vanished. Meanwhile, on the ground, the jungle had shifted. What had been trees were now pillars, architectural spires disguised through vibrational cloaking. The warriors that now walked the mossy paths weren't armed with primitive weapons, but with graviton-forged spears, their tips humming with arc energy. Their armor gleamed like obsidian dusted with stardust. Their faces bore ancient marks, their eyes lit by augmented irises scanning every alien heartbeat. One of them stepped forward, raising his hand to the confused, rattled invaders. He spoke softly, almost kindly. "You've come a long way from minerals. Shame you never studied the soil." The Zanari aimed their rifles. Energy charges built in their chambers. The warrior didn't flinch. He simply tapped his staff to the ground. And everything changed. A shockwave of light erupted from the central tower, flowing through the city like liquid fire. It spread into the earth, across the jungle, through the rivers, even into the air itself. Above, clouds peeled back like theater curtains, revealing shapes. Not stars, not clouds, ships, camouflaged into the atmosphere. Dozens of them, built from blackstone alloys, shaped like falcons and panthers, layered with radiant plating that bent light and radar. Some hovered silently. Others perched on floating platforms hidden until now. And all of them had one thing in common. They weren't Earth's defense. They were Earth's inheritance. In a hidden chamber beneath the soil, a console lit up for the first time in a century. A woman in flowing white robes, part lab coat, part royal garb, stood from her meditation platform. Her hair was woven with gold-threaded braids, her eyes gleaming with AR overlays. Project KANDA has been breached, the AI whispered. Then the prophecy was correct, she replied. Should I alert the UN? She smiled. No, let them watch. Across Earth, news outlets scrambled. Unidentified lights spotted in Congo region. Military satellites lose contact with Central Africa. Was Wakanda real? Viral theories surge. Within 24 minutes, Reddit servers melted. Conspiracy forums flooded. African Twitter went full caps lock. And all while the rest of the world screamed panic. The African Union simply posted a one-word tweet. Ready. Back in the jungle, the first Zenari scout tried to flee. He didn't make it far, because the ground beneath him turned to glass. Not from heat, from memory. Kanda's defense system had been scanning him, extracting knowledge from his molecules, converting it into crystalline archives. A city that learned from its enemies. And adapted. Quickly. Orbit shook. The Torval's edge began experiencing internal malfunctions. Life support, gravity, navigation, all flickering. From the Congo, a beam of data had launched into the ionosphere, piggybacking Earth's own telecom satellites, jumping between decommissioned spy satellites, infecting everything the Zenari touched. Not brute force. Reclamation. Where's their planetary leader? Cried Tkal. His lieutenant looked pale. We don't think they have one. What? They didn't call for help. They didn't activate the planet's defense network. Then who did? Earth didn't. Kanda did. As the skies above the jungle shimmered with battle-ready formations, and the Dominion ships began falling back in confusion, a final message was broadcast, not from any Earth nation, not from the UN, not from NASA, but from a private frequency beamed directly into the Dominion War Council's core systems. We were always here, hidden in your blind spots. Wakanda was the blueprint. And Earth? Earth was just waiting. In the heart of the Congo Basin, as alien ships hovered in disarray and scouts vanished in a glass and jungle, Project KANDA opened its eyes fully for the first time in 400 years. Not to the stars, to Earth. Because KANDA wasn't built for conquest. It wasn't built to leave. It was built to remember, to protect, to restore. And now it was awake. Far below the visible cityscape, beneath the rivers and roots, deeper than any radar had ever pierced, Kanda Prime, the true core, hummed with life. Its interior was impossibly vast, a subterranean symphony of crystalline data cores, quantum plasma reactors shaped like stone drums, and bioluminescent roots of a techno-organic tree pulsing upward through the ceiling. It stretched from the Earth's crust into what geologists might call myth. In the center stood the Council of Sheba, 9 elders, draped in shimmering fabrics woven from memory threads. Some were scientists, others warriors. One was barely 13. All were chosen not for power, but for legacy. Before them hovered a projection, a woman's face, dark-skinned and crowned in coils of light and circuitry. The AI. Her name was Nima. Code threshold reached, she announced. Her voice was calm thunder. Foreign incursion confirmed. Status. Opportunistic extraction attempt. The youngest elder, Almari, clenched her small fist. What do they want? Vibranic compounds. Helium, 3 reserves. Geocultural dominance. Standard Dominion protocol. The eldest, Mzi Kwame, closed his eyes. And they believe we are unclaimed. Nima nodded. They do not recognize sovereignty hidden in silence. He smiled, then let the silence end. Above ground, across the surface of the now-revealed city, a transformation was underway. What had looked like ancient stone temples and overgrown ruins were morphing, plates folding, light refracting, towers rising with fluid grace. Buildings weren't built, they grew. The city reconfigured itself into combat readiness, adapting to threats with a rhythm born of music, math, and memory. Atop one rising tower, a war dancer stood still, arms extended. Her name was Zuberi, a living descendant of the engineer-priest caste that first helped build Kanda. She wore armor that shimmered like a mirage. One moment, it looked like feathers, the next obsidian blades. Her mask, blank-eyed and smiling, bore markings older than most Earth languages. She twirled her spear once, and the winds obeyed. Below her, citizens of the Kanda settlements were already moving in synchronized formation, not running, not panicking. Training drills, combat prep, evac protocols. Everyone from elders to children knew what to do, because they had trained their entire lives for this very day. And now the city, not just the people, but the very earth beneath their feet, began to fight back. In orbit, Zanari flagship Torval's edge reeled from system-wide disruption. Command decks were in chaos. Screens flickered with alien glyphs, suddenly replaced by Earth's ancestral scripts. Swahili, Yoruba, Lingala, Xhosa, all running in cascading overlays. The lead systems analyst slammed his six-fingered fist into the console. These humans are using cultural languages as code. Their history is encrypted into their weapons. No, not weapons, whispered Strategos call, watching the live satellite feed as Kanda's towers pulsed in harmonic waves. It's a civilization, one that never stopped evolving. It just hit. A sudden explosion rocked the orbiting vessel. Not from weapon fire, from internal mutiny. One of the Zanari's own officers, psychically linked to Kanda's frequencies, had collapsed in a trance-like state and begun whispering Earth names, channeling something ancient. Paul didn't understand, and that terrified him more than weapons ever could. Back on Earth, beneath the emerald canopy, Kanda's outer cities awakened. Each one had been disguised as part of the ecosystem, dormant until specific frequencies passed through the air. Those frequencies were now active, embedded in the drum beats, echoing through the trees. Kanda didn't use radio. Kanda used rhythm. From Ghana to Gabon, coded sound pulses reached hidden outposts, long-lost citadels, buried train lines, even solar silos disguised as termite mounds. Each one came online, flashing golden across a virtual grid that spanned the African continent. In the underground hangars of the Isanda caverns, a different kind of army prepared. Not soldiers, keepers. People trained to operate ancestral mechs, living exosuits that resembled lions, panthers, crocodiles, and hawks. Each one was bonded to a pilot by lineage, not rank. DNA locked, spirit bound. They were the Jalia Guard, protectors of the true memory of Earth. And their leader, General Malika Osei, stepped into her armor with reverence. Her mech, a winged raptor named Nsarama, wrapped around her like a second skin. Every step she took echoed like thunder. Her visor lit up with constellations. "They came to steal our world," she said, voice crackling through command channels. "Let them choke on it instead." The Guard launched. Across the continent, social media, still unaware of the full truth, exploded in speculation. Drones tried to fly in. They melted midair. Satellites went dark. But one feed remained, a live stream from the edge of Kanda. A young boy, no older than 14, stood on a cliffside overlooking the awakening city. He held up a handheld device broadcasting to millions. Behind him, towers bloomed like flowers of steel and light. Hovercrafts swept across the skyline. Giant panther statues glowed blue with internal power, their eyes scanning the skies. The boy grinned. To everyone who said we were backwards, surprise. Then the feed cut to black. Meanwhile, in Geneva, global diplomats demanded answers. Why hadn't the African Union warned the world? Where had this technology come from? Was it alien? A threat? The AU's ambassador, Dr. Ekwembe, stood before the UN General Assembly with a calm smile. She said only this: "You all thought Wakanda was fiction, but it was a distraction. While you mined our lands and mocked our myths, we preserved our legacy." Project KANDA was never about hiding. It was about waiting. And Earth doesn't need backup. Earth was the backup. The chamber went silent. Outside, world powers recalibrated their strategies. But in the Congo, Kanda did not wait. It launched. Above the rainforest, 3 cloaked skyships lifted from the mist, each one bearing the insignia of different tribes long thought extinct. They hovered in triangle formation, projecting a sigil into the clouds. A Black Panther, a rising sun, and a mask, symbols long associated with fiction, but no longer, because Wakanda was a blueprint, and Kanda? Kanda was the original. The Dominion had tried to conquer Africa, but now Africa was rewriting the script of Earth, and the stars were next. Above the flickering haze of dawn, the city of Kinshasa was still, like the moment before a storm, the air charged with tension, every breath tight with anticipation. From space, Zanari Command had already flagged this city as a primary node. Population center, river proximity, soft target. They were wrong, because Kinshasa was not just a city. It was a keystone in Project KANDA's defensive lattice, and it was about to rise. 004 hours to contact. On the deck of the Dominion's forward assault ship Razek Thorn, Commander Seltar studied the topographic scans with narrowed eyes. No movement, no energy spikes, no counterordinates. Primitive, he muttered, activating the target acquisition systems. Cities still built in grids. Concrete, steel, no orbital defense. This will be over in a single pass. A younger officer adjusted his neural lens. Commander, the energy readings? Spikes from jungle humidity. Irrelevant. Prime fusion missiles only. Glass the node. Begin descent. In the heart of Kinshasa, the river shimmered. For one breathless second, it reflected the morning sun like glass, then rippled with white-blue energy, spiraling upward like a geyser of light. Birds scattered. The clouds twisted unnaturally, and the ground shifted. All throughout the city, civilians stopped and turned to the sky as invisible towers became visible. Massive crystalline pylons, previously disguised as old construction scaffolds and faded telecom poles. Now, their tips unfolded like lotus blossoms, releasing waves of electromagnetic harmonics into the air. And that's when the sky fractured. It didn't break. It peeled. High above Kinshasa, something previously invisible began to unfold itself. One piece at a time, hexagonal shields rotated and withdrew, revealing an armada. Skyships, hundreds of them, some shaped like stingrays, others like talons, some like ancient birds of prey, elegant but fierce, made of metals that reflected light in impossible ways. Their hulls shimmered between gold, black, and obsidian, rippling with frequency camouflage technology. The Vela Fleet, named after the Southern Cross stars. Dormant for centuries. Now active. Inside one of the lead ships, the Jalia Guard stood ready. Their command bridge wasn't metal and steel. It was wood, bone, and light, grown from ancestral matter and coated with biometric glyphs. General Malika Osei stood at the helm, her voice steady. Shield kinetic fields online. Harmonic cannons tuned. Engage acoustic disruptors at 30%. Let's give them a warning before we erase them. She turned to her second-in-command. Today, we fight above our soil. But tomorrow, we take the stars. The Razek Thorn dropped into the stratosphere, unaware. Their sensors never detected the Vela ships. Not until it was too late. A pulse wave erupted from Kinshasa, like a sonic boom made of light. The first Zanari dropship disintegrated before it could broadcast a distress signal, its hull torn apart not by missiles, but by vibration resonance. The second imploded from within, its own magnetic shields turned against it. On board the Thorn, alarm screamed. Panic spread. Where's the resistance fire coming from? There are no known structures at that altitude. No, there weren't. The central screen flashed with a new warning. Kanda Skyguard online. From a mist cloaking mountain Galliema, a sound emerged, not mechanical, not musical. A roar, mechanical and alive. One of Kanda's ancestral war mechs, shaped like a jaguar and the size of a sports arena, leapt into the sky, powered by internal gravitic turbines. Its tail unfurled into a ribbon of plasma blades as it collided midair with a Dominion fighter, tearing it in half. Behind it, 3 more beasts followed, eagle-shaped exoforms made for sky combat, ridden by the city's elite warriors, the Skycallers. Their armor gleamed with symbols from 10 tribes. Their spears crackled with lightning, and their orders were simple: protect Kinshasa at all costs. Inside the Dominion command net, confusion reigned. We were told this planet was primitive. There's no record of these technologies. They're using sound, Commander. Sound is turning our ships against us. No, said Commander Seltar, shaking his head slowly. They're not using sound. They're using history. He stared at a slowed playback of Kanda's towers activating. He recognized ancient Earth languages written in light, forming mathematical sequences, cryptographic structures, even temporal phase shifts. These people didn't just hide. They evolved in secret. This city is older than the Dominion itself. While the Dominion attempted to retreat into higher orbit, Kanda's tech core made its next move. The skyships vanished, each one slipping behind a light-bending, cloaking curtain powered by harmonic frequency lenses embedded in the clouds. One by one, they reappeared behind the Zanari ships, firing. The Kanda warships didn't use missiles. They used acoustic-laced graviton disruptors, weapons that made matter forget its own structure. Ships crumpled like foil. Vela Fleet ships danced through the sky, as if the air bent for them. They didn't fly. They glided through memory. A final attempt was made by the Dominion. A planetary-class missile, charged with singularity plasma, descended toward Kinshasa at Mach 9. In its wake, clouds evaporated. Trees disintegrated. Even sound seemed to pause. And then it stopped, held, midair, by a child, not alone, but plugged into a feedback loop of 10,000 linked Kanda citizens, connected through neural interface tattoos and vibration language. Her eyes glowed silver blue. She whispered, "Not today." And the missile unraveled, disassembled at the atomic level, and reformed into a golden tree, planted in the center of Kinshasa. By the time the sun had fully risen, there were no more Zanari ships above Kinshasa. Some had fled. Some had disappeared. One was still falling, slowly, wrapped in an invisible gravity bubble, its impact being delayed by a Kanda net of sound and magnetism. It would never hit the ground. The skies were calm again, but they would never be the same. In the capital's center plaza, surrounded by gleaming skyscrapers and floating transport rings, the people of Kinshasa gathered as General Malika Osei stepped forward. The crowd quieted. She raised her fist. To those who watched us with pity, watch again. To those who thought we were fractured, understand this. Kanda was never hiding. Kanda was healing. And now, we remember who we are. As the sun bathed the city in gold, a new constellation appeared in the sky, a holographic panther emblazoned with Earth's oldest sigils. Below it, a message pulsed in every frequency, in every language. We do not beg for survival. We were born to lead. The smoke had barely cleared above Kinshasa when the rest of the planet began to realize something impossible had happened. What began as a minor alien skirmish over Africa became the largest recorded military defeat of an interstellar force by a single Earth-based civilization. And it wasn't done in weeks or days. It was done in 15 minutes. In Washington, D.C., at the Pentagon, analysts were replaying the same 4 seconds on loop. A Zanari capital ship, 3 kilometers wide, folding in on itself mid-air, like paper sucked into a drain. But no detonation, no wreckage, just silence. The ship never reappeared. The U.S. Secretary of Defense leaned forward, pale. "You're telling me the Africans erased a Zanari dreadnought?" "No, sir," a technician replied, voice trembling. "They reclaimed it. The energy signature was rerouted into something else. We don't know what. Can we copy it?" "No. It's cultural code. The text partially built on language, on identity. You can't steal it. You'd have to be it." In Beijing, the Chinese Politburo convened in an emergency underground session. Reports confirmed that Project KANDA satellites had overridden global positioning systems across a third of the planet, replacing standard coordinate data with a new grid, one based on ancestral Earth ley lines. "We've lost GPS in half of Africa," an advisor warned. The premier squinted at a live feed of Kinshasa, where skyships hovered peacefully, cloaked in soft golden light. So what do they want? The room was silent, because no one had heard a single demand from Kanda. They hadn't taken territory. They hadn't launched any global attacks. They just defended, then went quiet. That was worse. BBC headlines screamed across every screen in London. Kanda, fact or fiction no more. Africa's tech empire exposed. Are we safe? If Wakanda was the distraction, what else is hidden? Parliament was gridlocked. Half demanded sanctions. The other half wanted to open trade talks. But no one knew who to call. The African Union had gone radio silent. Not because they were panicking, but because they were in session. And for the first time in world history, Kanda sent a delegation to lead it. At Addis Ababa, African Union headquarters. Inside the Grand Hall, draped with carvings and kinetic light scripts from every region of the continent, the Council of Sheba arrived, not virtually, not by envoy, but in person. Their robes shimmered with circuitry and soil, both woven into the same cloth. Their faces carried the calm of scientists and the strength of warriors. General Malika Osei, flanked by 2 Jalia Guard members, stood at the podium. "We come not to rule," she said, her voice amplified through resonance-based microphones tuned to the room's architecture. "We come to restore the truth." Screens behind her lit up, not with holograms, but with memory echoes. Videos of colonizers harvesting minerals from lands that once held sleeping engines. Footage of artifact thefts from museums now revealed as disassembled Kanda tech, and blueprints of cloaked cities erased from maps by history's careful hands. The world had taken from Africa, but Kanda had never truly left. Meanwhile, online in a matter of hours, #Kanda, #Wakanda was the blueprint, and #Earth was waiting trended worldwide. TikTokers broke down ancient African mathematics that had gone viral overnight. Twitter/X was flooded with stills of Kanda ships outlined in the mist, while Reddit exploded with posts about vibranium-like nanoalloys confirmed real, and did we ignore the future because it didn't speak English. But what made the world stop was a single live stream. A little boy, maybe 10 years old, standing beside the golden tree in central Kinshasa. No guards, no armor. He looked into the camera and simply said, "We were never late. You were just early." Inside the United Nations. Emergency meetings, closed sessions, shouting matches. Ambassadors from every nation demanded clarity. How long had Kanda existed? Why had the African Union kept it secret? Was this an Earth alliance, or was Africa going independent? The UN Secretary General finally stood. Enough. All eyes turned. We've spent centuries pretending Africa needed development. Now we see Africa was simply healing itself in silence. And now that it speaks, we will listen. Meanwhile, in Antarctica, in the icy nothingness beyond the global eye, a forgotten structure blinked awake. Buried beneath miles of snow, a Kanda outpost long thought lost began to glow from within. Its beacon fired upward into orbit, bouncing off newly awakened Kanda satellites, disguised as fallen meteorites. Each pulse carried a message. Begin restoration of the spiral cities. Unknown to the world, Project KANDA had more than one capital. Kinshasa was just the first. In Riyadh, Dubai, and Delhi, trade envoys scrambled to schedule meetings with the African Union, this time not as donors but as partners. In Silicon Valley, investors were left speechless when an anonymous African network launched a zero-latency global internet node. Not through fiber, but through vibrational frequency tunnels previously only theorized in string physics papers. And in Vatican City, theologians rewrote entire treatises overnight, because footage had emerged of Jalia warriors walking inside a panther-headed AI temple, consulting something called the Memory Fountain, where the city itself recited ancestral lineages back to the pre-cataclysmic era, a time older than the known human record. Everything was changing, but Kanda remained silent, not threatening, not boastful, just present. It offered no ultimatums, no global treaties, no revenge. It simply did one thing. It activated a planetary shield lattice centered around the equator stretching from the Congo to the Nile to the Sahara and beyond. A shimmering golden barrier visible only in the ultraviolet spectrum. Only one line of text accompanied its activation. If Earth bleeds, let it bleed from nowhere but the equator outward. In orbit, the remaining Zanari ships drifted. Silent, intact, defeated. One ship broadcast a final message to its empire. We miscalculated. Earth was not what it seemed. Kanda is not a city. It is a warning. And perhaps an invitation. And then, total radio silence. The rest of the galaxy? They were listening now. Back in Kinshasa, atop the golden tree, two children, siblings, watched the sunrise. Will they come back? The girl asked, eyes glowing faintly. Maybe, her brother said. What will we do then? He smiled, not like a warrior, like a child who had always known the truth. Then we show them what Earth really is. They turned and walked back toward the city. Behind them, the tree shimmered and whispered. Earth doesn't need to catch up. Earth was never behind. Earth was waiting. They came to colonize. They left with a coronation. The Zanari Dominion, once a galaxy-spanning force that had subjugated 31 planetary systems, had been silenced, not by orbital strikes, not by global alliances, but by a single activation. Project KANDA. And now, as Earth exhaled from its first interstellar encounter, something deeper began to settle across the planet, a realization. Humanity had never been the runt of the cosmic litter. It had simply been uninvited to the party. Until now, day 2 after the Kinshasa skies. The world was still trying to process the unthinkable. Most expected retaliation from the stars. Instead, what they got was a request for diplomatic audience. The message came not through radio, nor laser, nor quantum burst. It came on a leaf, carried by wind. Embedded with tech finer than a DNA strand, it unfolded in the hand of a stunned UN courier in Geneva. The words were simple. We surrender. We request terms from Earth's ruling voice. High Strategos call Zanari Dominion. Except, Earth had no ruling voice. At least, not yet. In a closed session deep within Addis Ababa, the African Union had transformed. No longer a regional body. No longer a footnote in global affairs. It had become Earth's first planetary council, with its heart in Kanda. Representatives from every nation were invited, but only those who acknowledged the truth. That Kanda had preserved the future of Earth through silence, memory, and design. That power was no longer to be hoarded, but harmonized. And so it happened. For the first time in recorded human history, a black woman stood as Earth's high diplomat. Her name was Amari Tembo, descended from warrior librarians and sound architects. She wore no crown, only a single thread of silver across her brow, connected to the living archive of Kanda's oldest memories. She addressed the world from the Hall of Echoes, a chamber where stone held sound for centuries. We will not answer invasion with retaliation. We will answer conquest with correction, because we are not your subjects. We are your mirror, and you have looked away long enough. At the Galactic Summit, the location, the rebuilt orbiting station once known as the ISS, now renamed Obel 1 First King, refitted by Kanda engineers, wrapped in quantum camouflage and shaped like a suspended crown, it hosted the galaxy's first formal contact between humanity and the galactic community, one now forced to see Earth as more than the primitive world. They expected ambassadors in suits. What they got were Jalia Guard in flowing kinetic cloaks, quantum linguists who spoke in gesture, rhythm, and light, memory architects who could sing your genetic history back to you in minutes. And at the center, Amari Tembo, seated not on a throne, but upon a floating disc shaped like an ancient drum. The Dominion offered reparations. The Mzahai Confederacy offered alliance. The Council of Zadries offered a seat, Earth's first, on the Galactic Cultural Concord, to which Amari simply replied, Earth accepts, but we do not kneel, and we do not forget. Kanda did not crown itself with gold. Instead, it activated the 12 temples of resonance, locations spread across Africa that had lain dormant for millennia. Great Zimbabwe, the Dogon Cliffs, the Nile Cradle, Timbuktu, and more. Each one pulsed in sequence, sending harmonic waves through Earth's magnetic field. And from space, Earth sang, literally, frequencies aligned into a choral transmission, audible only to those with implants or advanced tech. The message carried not war, but truth. We remember who we are. We are not your myth. We are not your lesson. We are not your resource. We are the origin. We are the mirror. We are the echo, and now the voice. Across the world, museums began returning what had been labeled African artifacts. Masks that were quantum lenses, spears that were gravity-defying stabilizers, statues that housed ancestral AI. But they weren't stolen relics. They were functional technology that had been dormant, disconnected from Kanda's memory grid. Now, each piece began calling home. At the British Museum, a ceremonial drum began vibrating until its display case cracked. Inside was a memory node. At the Louvre, a carved idol glowed faintly. An attendant fainted upon hearing it whisper his family name. All around the world, Kanda was collecting itself. Not through war, through reconnection. Old empires began to fall, not through military action, but through irrelevance. Economies shifted as Kanda opened limited access to Earth's new planetary infrastructure. Teleportation hubs, anti-gravity logistics, water-to-plasma conversion systems. But only to those who acknowledged three principles. No nation above Earth. No culture erased. Memory belongs to all. The world changed, not because Kanda forced it, but because the alternative was stagnation. Every child on Earth, regardless of nation, now had free access to the Library of Mtum, a living repository of pre-colonial science, lost languages, encoded star maps passed down through rhythm and sculpture. Children in Detroit, Lahore, Sao Paulo, and Sydney learned how the Dogon map series belonged before modern telescopes. They learned that vibranium was just a metaphor for potential suppressed and reawakened. On the edge of the Congo Basin, where the invasion first landed, the ground was now lush, healed, and humming. A single structure remained, a glowing spire with vines and metal twisted in harmony. From it emerged the last Zanari general, no longer armored, no longer proud. He knelt before the tree and offered a seed from his homeworld. "We do not deserve to be allies," he said, "but we hope to be students." The seed was planted, and it grew. Fast. Within days, a hybrid tree emerged, half alien, half earthborn. Its roots glowed with both cultures, and from it, a message was sent outward to the stars. Earth is no longer silent. Earth is no longer prey. Earth is sovereign. A young girl walks through the halls of the rebuilt Kanda capital. She passes ancient murals animated with AI. She passes a mirror. In it, she sees herself, and standing behind her, the reflection of a panther-shaped figure, watching. She doesn't scream. She smiles, because she knows the truth now. Wakanda wasn't fiction. It was the blueprint. And Kanda? Kanda was the crown. Not colonized. Crowned.